Mhm. Okay, here we are once again on a Friday afternoon where we are, probably morning where you are, with another Wisdom Factory community meeting. And Hangout on Air, which we devote to subjects of mutual interest. We were thinking about investigating states of consciousness today.
Do we?
We were thinking about that.
Okay.
Yes, and I was particularly hoping that somebody would come along that knew more about states than we did.
Because I didn't announce it yet. I said it's just talking, so we can talk whatever
Well, I
we want.
announced.
Anyway, we have at the moment Lawrence here. Hi, Lawrence.
Hello, Lawrence.
Hello.
Yeah. All right, he is there.
Yes,
He's
good.
alive. Okay.
And he is an expert in states of consciousness because when we do his practices, then they change these states of consciousness. Oh, by the way, shortly we have heard somebody talking. It was Stan Grof. We shouldn't say altered states of consciousness. No?
Stan Grof made that point, yes.
Yeah, because it seems always altered, like not normal.
Yeah.
And what did he say instead of?
He had another term. I've
forgotten that.
Yeah, but it was more neutral.
It was much more neutral. Yeah, because he explored the states of consciousness. Do you know him, Lawrence?
Not personally, no. I read of him, and done a little bit of the work under the guidance of one of his students.
So the breath work.
The breath work, right. The stuff that
because he
gigantic buzz.
He began his work with LSD research when he was still in Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting.
Yep, he's 84 now. He's an old timer in this business. Yeah. Oh, well, anyway, he suggested not calling them altered states of consciousness because that implies there's something kind of out of line, off, deviant, not normal about them. And he didn't like that. And I can appreciate that point of view.
Probably saw the film Altered States with William Hurt.
That was a while ago.
Yes. Very free.
It's an old movie.
Okay.
Anyway. So anyway, if we want to talk about states of consciousness, we certainly can. I think I'll be mostly on the receiving end because when I was interested in other states of consciousness probably before I was aware of any growing up aspect that I had to do, because I did have some interesting drug experiences in the 60s, and then a really, really long alcohol experience for several years, which involved other states of consciousness. Yes. But when I had kind of an existential crisis after retiring. Excuse me.
You are nervous?
A little bit. About 10 years ago, I thought I needed to investigate other states of consciousness in order to help resolve that. And in the course of doing that and learning some stuff too about it, I met Ken Wilber, and I immediately became engrossed in growing up in levels rather than in states. And I've been just drawn to investigating levels much more ever since, to the, not exclusion, but to minimizing listening states. And I could use a little help there. Yeah.
Doing Lawrence's course wouldn't help?
Are you asking me to commit online in public?
Oh no, we wouldn't.
Married couples don't betray each other that way. Come on, we betray each other in other ways. Yes, okay, but I hear you. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the meditation, we don't do it at the moment, really. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I think at least he has a different concept of meditation than I have.
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
So what is your concept of meditation?
Well, when I sit down and call it meditation, what I'm doing is just sitting. That's all I'm doing. I'm not making any efforts to achieve an altered or smorgasbord of other states. I'm just sitting and attending to whatever is arising in me to attract attention. And typically, it's just a couple of things. It's either thoughts, memories, or imagining. So whatever is coming up, I simply attend to it, nothing more. And in due course, the grip of the waking state on attention loosens, and a couple of different things may happen. One is I may enter into dreamlike states, start having little flashes and reverie. The other is that all of that subsides. It loosens and loosens and loosens until I come to rest. Boy, I'm getting into it just talking about it. The words are starting to disappear. Okay, yeah, just present as consciousness, without a center, without a person, without definition. And then another very odd thing happens sometimes, which some people call falling asleep, but I have decided that it is not that because it feels different from when I either sleep or have just awoken from sleeping. Very different. And what happens, I catch myself with my head drooping one way or the other, without any sense of having lost consciousness. And I used to try to correct myself quickly, and instead of doing that, I do something else. I do tongue mudra in the midst of that, and spontaneously I come upright again without any effort to do so. So that's just a description for me of what I call meditation. I find it very refreshing, and it opens the space for original ideas, certainly, new directions, inspiration, effortless. So my meditation is extremely simple, as you can see, and it leads to interesting effects.
Well, I really identify with virtually everything you said about my experience with meditation, going through those, having those same experiences, and often feeling a little guilty if I seem to fall asleep.
I'm sure you sleep.
She's absolutely certain that I sleep, and I would not deny that it looks like anything other than sleeping from the outside. But the inner experience doesn't seem to be the same as sleeping. But I also have that difficulty determining, if I take a nap in the afternoon, which we regularly do, that's a nice thing about Italy.
Siesta.
Siesta. After I wake up, half hour, 40 minutes later, something like that, I don't know for sure if I've been asleep. I must have been, because I certainly don't remember very much about it, and time has passed. But I was remarking on it earlier today that there was a time in my life earlier when I either was awake or I was asleep, and that's about as big a distinctions as I made about the state I was in. But I see so many gradations of consciousness now. So many easing ins and easing out, so many little reveries, so many little imaginings, so instantaneous images that make no sense in any context whatsoever. They don't connect anyhow. I in many ways, the more I know about states of consciousness, the less I'm able to talk about them, the less I can say about them. And yeah, it's kind of this is really interesting. Of course, you know I find myself endlessly fascinating, but that's another story.
Anybody as wonderful as you must, I suppose.
Oh, this drives her crazy sometimes.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate what you've said. It's kind of reassuring in some ways. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't get him to sit with meditation. I try to tell him sit. Instead, he lies down, and for me, he sleeps. Outside, it's snoring. It's like sleep.
But like death, we don't know the subjective experience. We see third person. But unless you have a second person communication where they can tell you what was going on inside, or if your intuition is sufficiently developed that you can project your attention into them and feel what they're experiencing, it looks like sleep, complete with snoring and whistling. How could you tell the difference?
So there.
I will try to do that. I've never thought about that. Instead, I'm sort of annoyed, when I sit and then it's...
You mean like sawing a log?
Anyway. For me, in meditation, there's a lot still of intention, because I think I have to do it in a certain way. Observe and then always course correct. Am I still doing this? What else am I doing? Blah, blah. There's always this observer at the same time present and looks what I'm doing. So, but definitely I know different states of consciousness. Lately, it happened twice, I think. When I had difficulty to wake up in the morning, but I was awake and I could stay in this state, in this middle state. I told him what was going on in a television set. This was funny. But sometimes then the words sort of get stuck in my mouth. I don't get them out.
Yeah, don't have a great vocabulary in that state.
Yeah. Maybe it's for the best. It keeps things simple.
Yeah.
You can't get
very simple.
You can't get the complicated intellect into it very much, so it comes out simply, but sometimes incomprehensibly, because we're kind of speaking from a dream zone in poetical and metaphorical language that the person listening would have to tap into to get something from it. And it would not necessarily be rational in the sense of logical.
No, it's not at all.
But I can have a very interesting conversation with her when she's in that state.
You should do it more often.
And sometimes I notice myself that what I'm saying doesn't make any sense. This is a different state still.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was talking about. I'm aware of what is going on and what I'm saying. But before I'm still aware, but I'm noticing that what I think I'm saying and what I think makes perfectly sense, the other part of me says, no, these are words that just don't make sense. Maybe they are even non-words.
Doesn't fit. Doesn't fit. No.
Anyway, we have listened to a talk lately. A student, I've forgotten her name, of Anne Weiss, I came across her about 20 years, 25 years ago, and she is studying brainwaves and awakened mind brainwaves pattern. And this was very interesting again. Do you know anything about that?
Yes.
You know, what I'm interested in is the high, the high beta goes into fear, anxiousness, and the higher it is, and then it switches over into gamma, and gamma seems to be something completely different. And this I would be interested if you know something about that.
Yeah, about gamma, I have some experience just having worked with audio binaural beat entrainment. And I don't think I have anything definitive to say other than it feels different than the highly activated beta state. I think it's just going so fast that attention skips like a stone flung on the surface of a lake. It doesn't go into the depth of experience.
Not into depth.
Yeah, not getting absorbed or involved in the content of experience. Beta is heavily involved.
Oh yeah. Oh, I have all these things, these brainwave audios. I think I just have to do it again. I did for 2 or 3 years. I did the Centerpoint Bill Harris thing, and a little bit Paul Sheely and John Dupuy and these things. This is quite interesting, but I don't do it regularly anymore. So.
Yeah, me too.
Well, these two
worked with Centerpoint for some years. Before that, there was Bob Monroe, who was working primarily in alpha. He was actually the first that I know of to have worked with binaural beat entrainment. Way back, Monroe Institute, where he wrote a book called Journeys Out of the Body.
I heard about that.
That to go a-floatin'.
And I heard the story of a guy who, it took him 3 or 4 years. He literally went out of his body and couldn't come back, in the sense that he was confused for several years until by doing that one. Much time ago.
Sometimes going out of the body is a way of going out of your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, why not? I mean, really, body, mind.
Yeah, what can I say?
No. Yeah.
So in some way, the spiritual teachings say that this is to be, how do you say, not reachable, but that you want to do that you want to enter into states, that you have this experience. And how big is then exactly the danger that somebody doesn't find back?
Well, I think if they have very little kinesthetic awareness, that's awareness of their feeling state of movement and shape and position, then they can easily get swept up in all of the distractions of mind. And since they have no reference state of equilibrium, which the body habit pattern provides, they just go fluting off and they have no orientation. So I go back to what I wrote in a certain piece on unique self, which is that somatic education keeps a person honest about their spiritual practice, because in one writer, they said the body doesn't lie, that the feeling state that you're in is your center of gravity, the place you return to again and again and again. And if a person has been a mental type and they haven't awakened feeling in themselves particularly, their center of gravity is just too weak. They just go floating off.
So why is then that generally spiritual teaching, if it is East or West, they don't really recognize the body, they don't recognize feelings, and they try to do it all in a
big bypass
mental space?
I will make use of Adi Da's teaching on that point. The difference between East and West. The Eastern emphasis is on, well, he used the word transcendence, but I say it's dissociation. Conditions on the East are so dire that the way of getting out of distress is to anesthetize body-mind awareness and to drive it down to a flatline state of formlessness without including form, without including embodiment, without including life. And that came over from the East to the West in the mid-20th century with a few teachers and a lot of teachings that were brought over by Westerners who had not plumbed the depths of those teachings and so tended to interpret them wrongly. So when I was in elementary school, they had films in school in which one of them talked about nirvana as the annihilation of being. So there is a mass of wrong teaching from half-baked understanding from translators who didn't embody the teachings. They just read about them and then tried to translate them. So that's one of the reasons that the Western idea of spirituality got corrupted by the Eastern. Go ahead.
Yeah, I followed spiritual teacher. I don't want to say the name, who is sort of not teacher anymore, and I was twice in a retreat, and he managed to say that a person can go through life without ever recognizing its body, feeling its own body. And I thought, huh?
Yeah, I agree with that. People do. They go through life all in the mind, and they're not grounded. So to them, the head is up here, those words up here, and the feet are down there because they're doing it from a visual perspective, seeing. Whereas if they felt, they wouldn't feel the feet down there. They would feel in the feet, in the head, in the hands, in the heart. No up or down.
Yeah, this is good. You know, I know that there are people like that, but he sort of taught it that it is perfectly fine, you know.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. He's not guru anymore, though. Okay.
Anyway, yeah.
The head on sticks approach.
Yeah, right.
And this was also our tradition, you know. In Christianity, the body was not allowed, and so we tried to get rid of the body, you know.
Just live in spirit only, because the medieval body, for example, was in horrible condition.
Sure. And again, people grossly mistranslated the teaching of Jesus, Yeshua ben David, totally, because, as Adi Da put it, people make philosophy according to their level of adaptation.
Of course. How else? Where else?
So Jesus never said anything like that. This baptism of spirit was not to take you out. It was to fill you up.
Yeah, and we have been taught all these things, you know. And then with sexuality being not really welcome in, you know, for many reasons, then it's even more to negate the body and try to ignore it. And here we are. Yeah. And we know it for quite a while that this is not the best way, but I think that very many people are still in this.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
There's a practice called...
Okay.
There's a practice called brahmacharya out of India, and it's generally regarded as celibacy. The greater meaning is kind of renunciation.
Which is a little different.
Yeah, but again, it can also be suppressive if approached as a strategy. There's another kind of brahmacharya or renunciation, which is called vairagya, the falling away of worldly desires. Falling away is a whole bunch different than suppression.
Excuse me.
Speaking of falling away, Mark has to go to
Mark has to go away because we have here the group of African dance, and that's why I put the African thing on the collare. What is it called? Necklace. Yeah. And so guests in the house, and they're calling. So
I see.
I posted a little video today, just a minute or so from this morning, just an impression. I held the camera into what they are doing. 4 hours dancing in the heat.
Wow.
I don't know how they do that. I would be dead. But they like it.
Yeah.
They come from France or wherever. Half of the people are talking French. Half of the people are talking Italian. And they are doing movement and good music. And I will have to cook for them in a minute.
We have 7 instead of 13. They're off to some medieval festival.
Oh, this I should have known a little bit before, you know.
Well, they didn't know before either.
Okay.
It's Italy.
This is Italy. You never know how many come.
We'll have plenty of lasagna.
Yeah.
Through the
Okay.
Oh yeah, through the computer. This is what I really wonder, how if technology can resolve that. The smells, for instance, if we can, and the touch and the taste, because we can see and we can hear with technology, but all the 3 other senses.
Maybe that's just easier to do, or maybe that reflects our choice of how we want to know the world, through our eyes and our ears. You know, that is a suitable substitute for real reality, so sensual reality.
Now, those are called teleceptors, tele, across, or at a distance, whereas smell requires, and taste requires direct contact.
Yeah.
And so does touch. So those are, what's the opposite of teleception? Maybe it's proprioception, I'm not sure.
Proprio sounds good. Next to.
So we were drawing a parallel between the East and the Western teachings and why they are anti-body. The Western teaching has achieved at its major pinnacle in materialism based on manipulation of the world rather than an abandonment of the world.
Yeah.
Western way is much more aggressive, controlling, and whatever's in the way of control is considered to be an opponent. So in the development of the mythic church, their approach was to suppress anything that was other than the church teaching, even though it had very little to do with Jesus or Yeshua's original teaching. It was a power structure. It was a power structure that was blended with the structure of the state and sought to maintain power by suppression. And if you want to suppress people, the best way to do it is get them to suppress themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And the best way to get them to suppress themselves is start at something really primal, sexuality. So get them to suppress their own sexuality, and you've really got them. Because they're buying your dogma that they're supposed to. Right away, you've got them. And then they're also suppressing their own life force, their own vitality by suppressing sexuality. And that's what you end up with the West. And then, of course, in the scientific developments, the concern turned from the internal mythic state of religion into the external perception of the world through science, and did what Ken Wilber's put it as throwing the baby out with the bathwater, namely throwing out the interiority, the person's sensibilities, in favor of what could be verified through measurement and consensus. So again, more suppression. Free thinking, because it was so infiltrated by mythic thinking, became suspect. And anything you couldn't see from the outside with your own limited perception was considered to be as good as not valid because it couldn't be proven. And so it wiped out the emergence, the imagination faculty in individuals, and everything was reduced to external observations until our cousin Albert, Dr. Einstein, came forward. He did his thing, and then he said publicly that imagination is actually more important than reason, because all of his work were thought experiments. And after that, he used his imagination to wield mathematics, the language of mathematics, into a poetical expression of what he had intuited. And mathematics is the gold standard of science, even though it's only a language.
And it is not visible and not measurable and not provable, nothing of that, because it's an internal thing. It is not material, immaterial mathematic. It shouldn't exist, by the way, from a materialistic standpoint. Anyway. You cannot trace it.
Well, then you should file a complaint with God. You gave us mathematics. All of our scientists are now bananas, except that, who was it? I heard it recently. Maybe it was even Einstein who said, I think it was a recent video I heard, who said, you cannot trust the mathematics. It is.
Because you can change mathematics.
Yeah.
You can, mathematics depends on the axioms, on the first 3 or 4 sentences which you never question. And when you exchange this, a completely different mathematics comes out, a completely different way of seeing the world, you know, like with a parallel axiom, when you dropped it, you had a different mathematics.
But just give me one miracle, and we have a whole system of mathematics, please, okay?
No, I don't know. But I wanted to say another thing. Isn't it inevitable when we go from the development from red into blue, so into mythic states, that that is power, a power situation? Isn't that?
I think so, yeah. It goes, but it comes unacknowledged. What blue is an effort to control the power of red through codes of behavior. So it's actually an act of power, but it's not muscle power any longer. It's thinking power and imagining power.
And control from a different way, from rules, you know, obeying the rules. And you can control it. It's not because I'm stronger than you and so I control what you do, but you have agreed to these to these rules, even if you are born in it and haven't voted for them, but you are here, and then you have to obey. And then there are institutionalized forces who take care for that. And so it seems to be inevitable that religions, and not only ours, have a sort of this control function, haven't they?
Yeah, and actually, if you compare it to red, it was a huge, huge improvement in many regards.
No, I was only thinking about, because so far I thought, Christian, how do you say, Christianity, the religion, you know, it's went in some way wrong because they built all this power structure, but maybe it's inevitable. It was inevitable. And how is it with the other religions? Is Buddhism also power?
Well, there's high Buddhism and low Buddhism. There's mythic Buddhism, and there's transcendental Buddhism. In memory, there was a case of certain Buddhists who set off a poison in, I think it was Tokyo subway. Now,
sarin gas.
Sarin gas. And the Buddha would never have advocated or tolerated that. So it's really an infiltration of the religious streams by earlier stages that don't represent the higher potentials or central structure of the religions. They're polluted. It's perversion.
Yeah, but what I want to say, isn't it a necessary perversion for a while, at least? I mean, we should have overcome that, but at the beginning. Wasn't it necessary?
To have red energy driving this blue structure?
No, to have a blue structure which is a control system. And then you use good or bad methods to maintain the control, to make obey what you think is right. And when they poison the underground, they probably have an absurd idea of what is right. You know, it's not commonly agreed anymore, like many other of these terrorist things are. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking about Christianity. Would it have been inevitable?
Inevitable?
No, evitable.
Avoidable.
Avoidable. Okay. Would it have been avoidable that they put up such a structure? To come to the state where we are now, you know? Well, that's my question.
Two things came into existence at pretty much the same time, and one was the shift from a hunting and horticultural cultures to agrarian.
To agriculture.
The former, the hunting, are individualistic. Every hunter acts as an individual, even if they're as a band out hunting. The actions they take are individual actions, and there's generally dominant individuals and subordinate individuals. Whereas in agrarian, the requirement for cooperation and synchronization is much, much higher. And so conformity rather than power individuals came to the fore. And that conformity was also tied in with the seasonal cycles and with the mythic structures. So when you get a group of people who are agreeing on a mythic structure, you have a mass of individuals that outweighs the individual power of any one person.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Examples of that are in Afghanistan. We don't hear much about Afghanistan recently, but when the U.S. was heavily involved in Afghanistan, we would hear reports of fantastic bravery on the part of Afghans, individual Afghans who were working with us. But they could not organize as a group and work together shoulder to shoulder, so to speak, as the American Army could. They're just quite different approaches to energy and what was valor. And so a small Roman army could defeat a much larger barbarian army that was all individuals working for themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, when you have an organization, you, even if there are less people, they have higher power than if everybody tries to do what they think at the moment is the right thing.
This pulls us away a little from the question you were asking.
Yeah, my question was if it is inevitable that when we go from red to blue, and blue are the traditional religions, if it is inevitable that these religions take over power structure. And normally, everywhere they are combined with the state, no? At least for a certain time. We still have it in the world, even now, you know? Where the religion is, fused with the state, and so for me it seems inevitable.
Well, it's sort of worked out that way. Whether it's inevitable, I don't know, but maybe we can help other cultures that are going through this transition to do it the better way.
Okay, and this brings another question: how would you help other cultures? Do you tell them how it is better? And you are the uncle from the West and know everything better and tell them how they should do?
No, I think we have to talk to Elsa Malouf about that. And she is a native Lebanese and is working, deeply with Palestinian people and having considerable success in transforming them into productive, healthy, nurturing blue, where instead of the grandfather handing the grandson the keys to the house in Jerusalem, and it's his duty to go back and reclaim that house with those keys, that the grandfather wants the son to have a good education and be able to go to school. And
this would be the
maybe
solution.
just get a 40-hour-a-week job somewhere, that way he can provide for a family. There's good stuff about structure, good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are healthy forms and unhealthy forms. And that's something that has not yet been brought forth very well, as far as I can see, in the Integral Institute teaching. They are very vague about broken fulcra of transition from stage to stage, and they haven't said much at all about healthy and unhealthy versions, except I think in the feminism field. There they've said a fair amount.
They've certainly spent a lot. They've said, they've spent a lot of energy on what's happened since, say, 1960, with the green mean, and what's good and what's not so good about that.
I see Margarita.
Oh, Margarita is there.
We can talk a little bit about feminism and stuff. I was a little bit astonished. What do you mean, Lawrence? What do you think they are more clear about, or more what is healthy, what is unhealthy?
There's been a whole bunch of dialogue about that. Will Ferrell being one of the key speakers I've seen, but there have been others. And then in the spin-off, the Authentic Man group, with Becker Kunov, who's been a workshop presenter at the Integral big shindigs that have occurred.
Yeah.
So there is that. And
which is not feminism, by the way.
Becker Kunov.
No, but it's
masculism. Menism.
Well, there's obviously a correlation between the two, because there's no masculine, no teaching of the healthy masculine without saying what that is in relation to the healthy and unhealthy feminism.
Sure.
Yeah.
Also, Genpo Roshi did a big mind process on healthy masculinity and healthy femininity. And the purpose of the big mind process, as he does it, is to awaken awareness of and integrate both the healthy and unhealthy forms to transcend all of the whole mess, and to be able to recognize one from the other. So there's been some of that. I gave you a link to a recording of a talk through the Authentic Man program people about this matter of this myth, this fallacy, actually. I won't use the word myth, fallacy of the masculine brutalization of the feminine. It certainly exists, but it's gone both directions. And according to the studies that he cited, it's about equal 50-50 both directions, whereas the feminism doesn't acknowledge the other direction.
That's true.
I didn't at the beginning. I thought seriously that women are better than men for quite a while.
Me too.
And that we are oppressed and everything.
Me too.
Oh, come on. This is
it's true.
Okay. Anyway, I really began to see where women abuse their power. They have a different way of power.
Oh, yes.
And I just come to my mind when you said that. It's about 20 years ago. I had a student, and I went to their house, and there was the mother and father and two girls about 18 or something. And the mother, she friendly talked to her husband, but there was a tone. And slowly, he went up the spiral of anger, let's say, and at the end he was really, and then she blamed him for being and wanted to show, look how he is. But I realized that it was her doing that, that is her really by certain ways of triggering him, manipulation, that she wanted to show off how bad he is, and I think we have this thing as a feminine female tool to work underground and influence men, so that then even, these many women get hit by their spouses, not many, but some, and it might be a brutal guy, but often it's also the woman who is
instigating this,
or at least helping that in a certain way, because if you don't want to be hit, you go away, and if you don't go away, and that means that you are in some way have a benefit of that, So, and when we know about our patterns and that we are victim, and we had here a girl, 16 years old, she came out of such a background where the family was really broken, and she behaved really, I think she was also borderline, really in a bad way. And once, not with Mark, it was 15
not with
years
me,
ago.
no.
And once was really bad, and she at the same time had the attention of 5 people, 3 here, 1 in Germany, and 1 in another place in Italy, and everybody tried to sort of calm her. And then at a certain point, my husband, as he has the same energy, he obviously knew how to do it. He did the police thing, and he blocked her, and then she couldn't do anything anymore, and then she was quiet. And what I wanted to say, the next day she said, "Why didn't you beat me? Then it would have been ended immediately." So there are people around who see being beaten as a caress, as a attention, as a love expression, sort of, because they were used to it. And in her family, it is like this. And I heard when she talked about a new baby arriving of her sister, and these constrictions of life stories, that make you then provoke that the same thing happens again and again and again. And you find your way. I mean, she did find her way to make us crazy, yeah. So, just to say that often women
experienced that too. I mean, I really have experienced that one time, but I didn't stay. I left. So I saw that and I triggered, right? I saw it, but I wasn't aware of it at that time. But I realized afterwards when it happened that, oh my goodness, it was all me who did it. Because if I would have stayed like I'm now, not reacting to it, that would never have happened. But if he hadn't done that to me, I would have never known. I would have never known, because I hadn't experienced that previously.
Done what to you?
Life, ever. It's like horrifying, right? And then, of course, I didn't say anything.
I don't think she heard you.
Clarence wanted to know what has happened. So
you said did that to you. Did what?
To be beaten by a man.
Oh. That's one way of getting your attention. They can go either way. Either you can blame him for beating you, or you can wonder why he did it.
Well, I just, as I said, I discovered it. I mean, if I talk to a person, I've had clients who have been, molested since childhood with their parents and everything. That's a far more intricate way, because you actually are wrapped in the layers of conditioning, and you don't know what to do. You don't really know what to do. You just have to go to the next part, right, and just lift the layers little by little. I have one particular client I helped a little bit by doing jewelry, and she says, she even gave me a testimonial. It was so profound, because she discovered that my goodness, I see how it was. I'm not yet able to fully embrace it. But she had this insight at that moment. And if I didn't have this insight about it in my own life, I could never have seen that in my client. So it has also kind of a lot of consequences still in my life, but I did make a choice to move away right away.
Yeah, and we were talking about healthy and unhealthy ways of doing. I mean, we cannot avoid that this can happen. But then, who are you in the face of what is happening? And
I think I'm a far better person. Like I have gained some wisdom there, like on this topic, and then I could see and help other people with that. But it was so mind-boggling that somebody is going to actually beat you. I was so shocked. I've never had that happen. I mean, my father sometimes spanked us, but he always told us exactly why, and he would never hurt us, right? So it was like a reprimand, right? But we were never harmed. And he didn't do it repeatedly, just when at the end, right? And not very hard either. And of course, he loved us very much. I could say that. And it was once in a while when we were really bad. 5 kids, right?
And I think the situation I was talking about, when women sort of search out men who beat them, that is such an intricate pattern thing. You know, this is an unhealthy form, because they didn't have the love in the form we think love would be in their childhood. You know. They probably didn't have any attention, and only when they were really bad, then somebody gave them attention.
And they got attention.
Negative attention. So,
like our dog.
Could it be like this, that we have, layers and layers, and here is a little trauma, and there is a little trauma from a past life or whatever. I overcome this layer. And then I moved together with this man, and I thought it was all so fun and nice and beautiful. But I had this little dip here that I needed to learn. So the layers are coming off with each challenge until we come to the core, and that's when you get enlightened, right? Because then you have no more patterns to clean up.
Yeah, but I think the layers are sort of infinite.
Yeah, I'm not sure
because even if you have your own life cleaned up, but all the cultural patterns you are carrying with yourself, I don't think it will ever end. But no problem. That's why we're here.
I mean, I didn't say the timeline here, and of course you're right, but it is possible. I think it is possible.
I'm not concerned whether it's possible or not, because it certainly hasn't ended for me. And if I examine anybody else, I can certainly see their warts, and it isn't ending for them. You know, I don't know who is, in any ultimate sense, enlightened, you know, without bumps in their personality.
Yeah.
Let's take that one a little further.
Yeah. Okay.
Just for fun here. Adi Da has been considered one of the highest realizers of history.
Yeah.
And yet, and I'm not even alluding to the behavioral scandals that occurred in that setting, but that actually there was a time where he considered doing psychotherapy because he knew he had residual material, and it was not a matter of transcending it, it was a matter of transforming it. And he didn't do it, this is what I understand from what I heard, because he felt that no psychotherapist would understand him. They would consider him probably psychotic for saying, I am that, I am God. You see, so it's a little dicey going in there and dealing in with the material. But he said more than once that things do not cease. Things do not come to an end. They have not come to an end. And he was referring to his own case. It is an endless process of transformation. It's just whether I think it's informed by higher intelligence capable of witnessing this idiosyncrasy as it comes up, rather than immediately identifying as the idiosyncrasy and going bananas without any intelligence about it.
Yeah.
Well, so far so good, folks.
Yeah, I would like to wrap up a little bit. We started out with, oh dear, I've forgotten, the states of consciousness.
Yeah.
And then we were talking a little bit about the major religions and suppressing
sexuality,
individuality, and I asked the question if this is inevitable when we grow up through the stages of development, and then we came into healthy and unhealthy, and that's where you came in, Margarita, and Lawrence had talked about that in integral circles. They have talked a little bit more about feminism more in depth about healthy and unhealthy, while in the other areas not really very much.
Yeah.
And then we came into this gender thing, and then you came in, and that's where we end up at the moment.
Well,
and an hour has gone by.
An hour has gone by.
Yeah.
And we hardly touched on states.
No, just at the beginning where Mark reported his state's experience, and I reported a little bit of mine.
Yeah.
And I could tell you a story, Margarita, about
Lawrence
learning,
did also.
and Lawrence also, about taking off layers of what I had to learn by a very bad experience ongoing. It was not that I was beaten, but psychologically beaten, let's say, in this way. So, yeah, it's so much to talk about and to share. Wonderful. Thank you for being here, and let's continue the talks. Even if nobody shows up, even if nobody listens, this is not a problem. We just talk between each other.
What if it's only us talking to each other?
Only you and me, this at the end is boring. So I really appreciate it.
Same old, same old, same old. Yeah.
Mark,
Okay.
Mark.
Yes?
You are named Mark
I'm me.
for a reason.
Mean for a reason.
You are named Mark for a reason.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You missed the mark, or what?
Do you miss the mark?
Sometimes I miss mark.
Okay.
The question is, do you hit the mark?
Hey. Sometimes it's a bullseye. Yes, it is. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all.
See you next week. Bye-bye. And who sees the replay, come and join us.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, all.